Okay, we're going to go ahead and cover now the Karpman drama triangle. So just to assist you with this next step, refer to the diagram of the drama triangle and evaluate whether your presenting problem is associated with a power struggle in the drama triangle and identify which archetypal role you primarily identify with. So do you primarily play the role of the victim, the rescuer, or the persecutor? For example, someone may have played the role as the persecutor by blaming, accusing, attacking, controlling, bullying, or acting like a perpetrator. If you played the role of the victim, reflect on whether you found your mother, father, or caretaker often playing this role. If so, likely this is an inherited or absorbed behavioral pattern that you defaulted to, which is a gene expression, or a belief that you adopted as your own, and we will need to change the imprinted subconscious belief. Each of the archetypes in this model fail to understand their self-perpetuating behaviors or perceive the power to change their circumstances, defaulting to specific archetypal roles and sometimes alternating between roles. Although we may identify more with the primary role, we typically rotate between roles throughout different scenarios in our life. So regardless of what position we start at in the triangle, all roles inevitably originate from and end up in the victim position, because these roles exist from the constructs of unconscious power struggles that arise from a lack of personal empowerment and accountability. So when you find yourself in a conflict in one of these archetypal roles, ask yourself what emotions this person or event invokes in you that lead you to play this role. So first we're going to start with the description of the rescuer. The rescuer's line is, "Let me help you." Rescuers are classic enablers with a savior complex. They believe that everyone needs him or her. Rescuers are codependent and feel guilty if they don't go to the rescue, but fail to meet their own needs. Rescuers are frequently agitated, overworked, tired, caught up in a martyr cycle while resentment festers underneath. Although the rescuer is well-intended, their rescuing has negative effects. It keeps the victim dependent and it gives the victim permission to fail. So the rewards derived from the rescuer role enables them to ignore their own issues. Their interest in rescuing the victim makes them feel superior and is actually an avoidance of confronting their own problems, unconsciously disguised as a concern for the victim's needs. Now we're going to cover the victim. So characteristics of the victim are, victims believe that things are outside of their control and happening to them. Their stance is, poor me. The victim feels oppressed, helpless, hopeless, attacked, powerless, victimized, and ashamed by a persecutor or outside circumstances. Victims can seem unable to make decisions, solve problems, and take pleasure in life, or achieve solution-oriented insight. Victims will seek out a rescuer who will save them from a persecutor, but also perpetuate the victim's state of helplessness and negative feelings. The victim can get caught up in a martyr cycle because they believe it is somehow more noble to be a victim than a persecutor. So some questions to ask yourself if you're playing the victim role is, do I often find myself needing to defend myself, explain myself? Do I often feel invalidated or misunderstood by others?
To further illustrate this triangle, when the rescuer tries to save the victim, it subconsciously implies to the victim that they are incapable, which causes them to feel powerless because they are not owning their power. Therefore, the victim will begin to resent the rescuer, and the rescuer will begin to feel unappreciated for all of their hard work and effort in saving the victim. The rescuer's resentment will begin to fester, causing them to be angry toward the victim, rotating them to now begin acting like the persecutor with blame and anger toward the victim. Now they have both fallen prey to the victim position. However, once the rescuer can believe in the capability of the victim by either inspiring or teaching them, breaking from their codependency, they can both mutually begin feeling empowered and break that codependency cycle. Like the Chinese proverb suggests, teaching others how to fish rather than feeding them for a day, which only creates dependency instead of empowerment. So here are the characteristics of the persecutor. The persecutor is dominating and plays the role of the authoritarian. The persecutor feels superior to others, believing he or she to be right and has all of the answers. the true God complex, right? The persecutor cannot admit to being wrong and therefore seeks out a victim to project the blame onto using attacking behaviors towards the victim, such as blame and anger or criticism, setting strict limits and often behaving in a controlling, bossy, or rigid manner. And these can oftentimes come with authoritative, angry, manipulative, and aggressive behaviors. Persecutors keep the victim feeling oppressed through threats and bullying. In terms of resilience, persecutors won't bend or be flexible and can't be vulnerable because they fear the risk of being victims themselves. Persecutors tend to yell and criticize, but they don't actually solve any problem or help anyone else solve the problem. We may all have someone that comes to mind that may exhibit one of these particular roles, but remember, each one of them cycle through the entire process.
Okay, so while these may be extreme examples of these three roles, the Karpman drama triangle maps the archetypes of the dysfunctional social roles that can regularly occur between people in conflict that we can each relate to. And although it illustrates our maladaptive responses, codependence is a natural part of our emotional development until we reach personal empowerment. These roles illustrate default reactive patterns where we often find ourselves giving our power away and alternating between roles. So look closely to see which role applies most to you. When in conflict, such as power struggles, which archetypal role do you typically find yourself playing? Is it the victim, the rescuer, or the persecutor? Who is the individual you are in this cycle with? There may be multiple individuals. And what is the most common issue related to that leads to this drama triangle, such as conflict with finances, time, or responsibility? And what is the emotion that is triggered inside of you that leads you to playing this role?